It was early morning. One of my friends was a local gunsmith, and he handed out firearms to anybody who'd take one. You see, the Daltons got it in their heads to rob two banks at the same time. Two banks on the same damn street. The story was Bob Dalton's girl was always writing about how he had no ambition. Oh, you're nobody next to Jesse James, she'd say. Finally, the bastard took his brothers to Coffeyville just to shut her up. Well, the locals recognized the Daltons right off.
We got us a hero.
Before they could get away, half the town took up arms to defend their property. The brothers paid dearly for their stupidity, but everybody knows they had it coming.
There's more to it than that. I read all about that day, so I know for a fact that it went down very differently. First of all, it was high noon. A posse of U.S. deputy marshals were on the rooftop across the street.
Get ready, boys. They're gonna make a move.
The lawmen had been tracking the Daltons for months. Now they finally had them dead to rights. Among them was a bounty hunter feared by many a lawbreaker. This man had no intention of letting the Daltons slip away. The marshals tried to get the Daltons to surrender.
They'll give up eventually. We just gotta wait for something to happen.
This bounty hunter knew that the brothers were far too proud to ever lay down their guns. He went in there alone to confront those criminals. One of the marshals shouted, "Where are you going? Are you crazy?"
Hey, where do you think you're going, dumbass? That rifle's mine.
But he paid him no mind. He saw a way to get around to the back of the bank. Then he figured out how to hit the Daltons from a direction they weren't expecting. From above. Fortunately, a water tower was right there. A moment later, he was climbing up a steep ladder, laughing at danger as he did. It was brave men like him who risked their lives to tame this wild country.
We've got company.
Heroic men like him, who did what other men couldn't or wouldn't to make this country free. Jim Boone, Davy Crockett, who died defending the Alamo.
Is that Silas Greaves? Son of a bitch! Oh, now you're really pissing me off! Silas Greaves! What the hell?
Blam! He came away victorious, taking down those thieving Daltons.
Yellow bastard!
His name? Silas Greaves. And when the dust finally settled, he was the last man standing.
Sorry, kid, but that just wasn't the way it happened. It was early evening, not high noon. I was late to the party and Coffeyville was already up in arms. The Daltons blew up a safe and were all set to hightail it out of there. Those pathetic deputies surrounding the bank were dropping like flies. I had been tracking those jokers for months, waiting for them to do something reckless. Boy, you are. Finally, they did. Those stupid bastards decided to rob 2 banks at the same time in the same town where everybody knew them. But they still had friends in Coffeyville. Go ahead! Oh, now what? Those friends came after me like a pack of wild dogs, tooth and nail. They were coming at me from all directions. I caught sight of the Daltons running with the money and didn't want to lose them. Problem was, they knew the town better than I did. To top it off, I found myself in the middle of another shootout entirely.
Did the Daltons hole up in somebody's house?
No, it was the Smiths, I believe. They were cousins of the Daltons. And they were shooting at the Browns, who were shooting at the Daltons. Which wasn't any surprise, because those 2 families have been feuding forever. And since the Joneses are related to the Browns, they shot at the Smiths, pissing off the Heimhoffers, whose daughter recently married a Smith. Well, bullets were flying every which way as all the old feuds in Kansas caught fire all at once. There was a hell of a lot of pissed off people in Coffeyville that day. But that's just the way life is sometimes. Shit happens. The Dalton boys knew I would never give up. Those Daltons weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer, but they always stood together. They set a trap to slow me down and allow at least 2 of them to escape. The 3rd brother stayed behind to plant me, just in case that trap of theirs didn't work. It was Emmett, the youngest, and he decided to stand his ground and face me down.
I ain't afraid of you, Silas Greaves. This is where it ends for you.
understood how he felt. Taking me on all by his lonesome wasn't exactly a recipe for a long time.
I'm gonna place you where you stand. I'm gonna cut you in half. It's hog killing time.
But Emmett Dalton survived the robbery in Coffeyville. He's the only Dalton who did.
They say he was shot 23 times.
Well, Dwight, who do you think put all those damn holes in him? But I have to admit, that boy had grit.
We'll get those suckers!
It took me a couple of days to track the Daltons down.
They can't get away with this!
And in that time, a whole posse of local vigilantes offered to lend a hand.
We'll track them to the ends of the earth!
They seemed as determined as me to find those outlaws. But as we headed into those swamps, it was like I had my own private army. There was no way those boys were getting away this time.
It was early fall, right? Beautiful time of year. At least you had the weather on your side.
Not by my recollection. It was damp and foggy as hell. It was tough to stay on a true course, so we kept an eye out for landmarks. It was autumn. The maple trees were in full color, red as blood. The rains that year were torrential, so the whole area was flooded. The vigilantes had spread out wide, and pretty soon I couldn't see anybody.
Bury them in the swamp! Plant them where they stand!
Except for some bitches ahead of me wanted to do me harm, so I had to face them alone. I wondered why my compatriots didn't come running when they heard the shots.
You won't get away with this! You can't hide forever!
So did you find the Daltons?
Not yet, but I did have the questionable pleasure of meeting a few of their friends.
Man can shoot! Give him
That's right! Run!
The boys had established quite a reputation by that time, so they attracted all manner of riffraff to their cause.
Sorry, son of a bitch!
Point being, I was under serious attack. My reinforcements was nowhere to be seen.
Somebody kill that son of a bitch! He'll kill us all! Kill that goddamn bounty! Time to die!
But luckily, a barn materialized as if right before my eyes. I scrambled up top to get a better view. But just ended up falling inside.
So, how did you get out?
The barn doors was open. About right then, I saw some suspicious characters running through the bushes. Of course, I followed. But that goddamn swamp was like a goddamn maze, and pretty soon I had no goddamn idea where I was. Steve? So I just started walking, and pretty soon... Steve? Steve!
Huh? Oh, no, I'm listening.
Indians surrounded me from all sides.
Indians? There were Indians?
No. I just wanted to make sure Steve was paying attention. Now, where was I?
You were following the Daltons through a swamp?
That's right. See, Steve? Dwight's paying attention.
No, I'm listening. I was just resting my eyes.
So, where was I?
The Daltons.
Right. See, there's a reason so many outlaw gangs are made up of brothers. Being a brother is a very sacred thing. It's a bond like no other.
Bounty hunters! Stop that, son of a bitch!
So did you ever find the damn Daltons?
Not yet, but I did find a few of their cousins. You cans breed like rabbits. More Smiths or Heimhoffers or who knows what. But hell, what's more important than family? I bet Ben knows what I'm talking about.
Kill Green! Bury him in the swamp! Can't beat us all! Die, you damn bounty hunter!
Face me! What are you gonna do? Can you shoot around corners? Yeah! Now you're in trouble. Waste your bullets. Go ahead. Shoot, I dare you. I'm ending you.
Can't believe you keep missing!
I knew those Dalton boys were out there somewhere, standing together against anyone who would threaten them. That's when I saw it. A goddamn steamboat.
A steamboat in a swamp?
Yeah, Steve, but this wasn't much more than a wreck, really.
But how'd a damn steamboat end up in the swamps?
Guess it floated off during the flood of '89.
Now, was it a stern wheeler or a side wheeler?
What? Does that really make a difference, Steve? It was a steamboat with a goddamn army on board. It was then that a fusillade of bullets come raining down from on high,
Silas Greaves?
and those vigilantes who accompanied me weren't anywhere to be found. But among those men who were shooting at me, I thought I saw some familiar faces. Waiting on me.
Brother, I'm gonna make you pay. You better hide.
Sounds like you don't give up too easy.
That's the kind of man I am, Ben. I set out to do something. I do it. Surrender just ain't in my nature. Plus, I'm stubborn as hell. Right about then, much to my relief, the vigilantes finally arrived. Their leader motioned at a cabin in the middle of the top deck, pointing me directly at the Daltons. I finally had them, after months of dogged pursuit. But it turned out that they had me.
Take him out! I'm sending you to hell!
The Daltons had played me
Not
like
so
a
tough
fiddle.
after all, is it?
Apparently, the vigilantes were on their damn payroll. They didn't just want to shoot me. They wanted to burn me alive. But finding my way out of a burning labyrinth proved to be quite a challenge.
It was a riverboat, right? I mean, it's not like it was a goddamn ocean liner.
Well, yeah, but I was in a
Did you
fight.
hear about that ship that's gonna launch next year? Largest one in the world.
You're
What I'm-
talking about the Titanic. If you ask me, it's too blessed big. I don't think it'll even float.
So anyway,
Don't be stupid, Steve. They know what they're doing. They say that the Titanic is unsinkable.
oh God,
But getting back to that steamboat, how'd you get off it, Mr. Greaves?
I took in a lot of smoke that day, so I admit my recollection might be a bit hazy. But somehow I managed to finally disembark. It was time to settle this once and for all. Bryant weren't about to come at me one at a time. They were in this together. Two brothers side by side, determined to take me down. Confident that this time the odds were on their side. They got it wrong. A sad end for those two. If they'd only known that Emmett was still alive despite his wounds. Paroled 14 years later, he moved to California and sold real estate and lived off the legend of that fateful day. And the tragic death of his two brothers. My own brothers died tragically as well, truth be told. It was 1868, and me and my older brothers were pulling a tidy profit running cattle into Juarez, Mexico. One night after my brothers retired for the evening, I found a little poker game in a cantina with a couple of cowboys. And I just couldn't lose. I even won an old Spanish coin that had to be 100 years old. Well, I was mighty pleased with myself the next morning as my brothers and I rode for Texas. But before we crossed the border, those cowboys caught up with us. It was Johnny Ringo, Roscoe Bob Bryant, and another asshole named Jim. They wanted their money back and everything else we had, including our lives, as those boys didn't want us coming for them later. Bob put that old Spanish coin in my mouth and said, "I won't have it said that I left you with nothing, boy." Well, those horses bolted, and there we hung as those bastards rode away. The branch finally snapped under the weight of the three of us, but being my older brothers were bigger and heavier, they were already dead. And right then I swore to myself that I would avenge them. Ringo you know about. But Bob eluded me, until I heard he was riding with the Wild Bunch. I'd been on their trail for months, ever since they left their hideout in the Bighorn Mountains. Led by Butch Cassidy, they were a loose association of outlaws who robbed banks and trains from Colorado to Montana. Among them was the Sundance Kid, and that murderous hombre I was tracking, Roscoe Bob Bryant.
Were you a part of that giant Pinkerton posse after the Wild Bunch?
No, boy. A circus like that would have slowed me down. Besides, I wanted Bryant all to myself. I'd heard about a large shipment of gold being transported to Wilcox, Wyoming on the Overland Flyer. They blew the bridge with the intention of forcing the train to stop. Well, I assumed the Wild Bunch was likely in the still intact part of the train high above. I was determined to make that sumbitch Bob pay for what he did to my brothers. I found the device they used to blow the tracks, so I knew I was headed in the right direction.
My ears are still ringing from blowing up that bridge. What'd you say? I can't hear a goddamn thing.
Well, I made my way off unscathed and came upon a few members of the gang and had no choice but to dispatch them.
Goddamn Pinkerton!
From there, I had to negotiate an even more precarious route. But first, I would need to get my ass out of there. Jumped from the frying pan into the fire as the train was clearly fixing to fall. I had found the gang, but in order to find old Bob, I needed to fight my way forward past a whole passel of desperados. Outside, inside, any way I could, I made my way towards my prey.
You'll die for this, you hear me?
Well, what about the passengers?
It was mostly a freight train, as I recall. There were no passengers aboard that day. As I mentioned before, I am not fond of heights, but I was too busy dodging bullets to worry about falling to my death. Odds were I was likely to die that day anyway, so I was determined to take down as many of those bastards as I could. It was like shooting ducks in a shooting gallery. The only difference is these damn ducks shot back. I kept hoping the law would show up and give me a
You
hand.
mean like that giant Pinkerton posse that I read about? Did they come riding in, guns a-blazing to help?
Help? From the Pinkertons? No, son. I had to fight the wild bunch all by my lonesome, as usual.
Who the hell is that? Take cover! Retreat! Retreat! He's killing everybody!
You calm down, that
He'll kill us all! Run! Yeah, you know you can't.
My guess is those dime novels didn't portray this as it happened, did they? Only a few stragglers were left, and I had to cut them down pronto if I was going to stay on old Bob's trail. Once I silenced all those guns, I went searching for my nemesis, determined to finally have my justice. But the only survivor who welcomed me was George Flat-Nosed Curry.
Who was he?
The fastest gun in the gang. Right after Sundance, I mean. And Kid Curry, and maybe Elsie Lay. Though some folks might dispute that. On that very same day, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid decided to leave the Wild Bunch behind and decamped for South America. They ended up living down there for many years, but I'm sure you already know all about that.